everyone, welcome to another episode of the Digitize Fully Charged Podcast. My name's Pam Curry, joined as always by my co-host Niall Ridgway, and today's episode is with Jenny Martin. Jenny does a lot of work facilitating workshops. She coaches and trains people in terms of Agile. She was recommended to us by Ben Rouse in an earlier episode where he talked about a brilliant activity Jenny does involving superheroes in order to teach a digital tool, Miro. So let's dive into the episode and talk to Jenny. Jenny, super excited to meet you, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. As ever, at the start of the podcast, we hand over to our guests pretty quickly because you're really the best person to introduce yourself to our audience. So could you tell us all a bit about you and how you ended up becoming the collaboration coach?
Oh, God, yes. So I managed to spend an accidental 25 years in tech, basically.
Sure.
I did a psychology degree and then kind of ended up kind of scooped up by a consulting company and doing all sorts of tech delivery jobs for about 25 years. But the thing that I guess I focused on was, and the thing that motivated me was really just getting people to collaborate better.
Sure.
So getting them to work more effectively. And I guess I was most energized by that feeling that you get when everybody's like really flourishing and happy and motivated, and all of that stuff. So I did quite a lot of work, still do, in collaborative software development practices and things like that. But the last sort of 15 years, I've been doing more and more work with teams. I've been running workshops for years and years. So I've been focusing more on workshop design, training design, kind of experiential learning. And recently, so last year, God, what's happened to the last 5 years? Last year, I did a postgrad on the psychology of kindness and well-being, which was fascinating. So that's allowed me to do more and more work in terms of communication and psychological safety and all of that stuff. And then I guess most recently is pulling all those things together. So I run an event, a not-for-profit event, which I started this year called the Inclusive Facilitation Exchange, which is all about leveling up learning design and facilitation for neurodivergence, and particularly in embracing neurodivergent folks. So when we design for that, we design for everybody. So I guess I guess people might be a bit confused about what I do because I'm an Agile coach over here, I'm a facilitator over there, I'm a positive psychology interested person over here. So a mixture, but the theme is collaboration, so hence
we'll definitely chat about the collaboration and kind of your all the work that you've been doing around kind of Agile coaching as well. I would love to jump into your psychology of kindness. I think that would be a fantastic place to start and like learn what is the psychology of kindness and well-being. What does that mean? What does that look like? Who were you supporting with this? Like, what were you doing to discover the psychology of kindness?
Yeah, so it found me, I think, via my social media, and I saw this, postgrad at the University of Sussex, first of its kind, only been running for about 6 months or something like that. And it was absolutely fascinating. So based on positive psychology, really, and positive psychology is been around since about the 90s. And if you think about psychology before that, it was all about fixing people. So it was all about pathology, people with schizophrenia or personality disorder or depression or anxiety. It's all about fixing people. And then positive psychology came along as what about the naught to plus? What about the thriving? What about being your best possible self? So that encompasses all the things that we need in terms of well-being, our human psychological needs, So that's all the well-being part, which was really, really interesting, and particularly at work. So looking at how organizations foster well-being and psychological safety. And then the kindness thing, relatively sort of unexplored in terms of science. So, and it gets a bad press. So I was intrigued by this because all of my professional career in tech, and I was the only woman in senior leadership, and often kind of criticized for being too compassionate.
Okay.
Like I remember being told very early on by somebody who actually cared about my future, you'll never make it as a senior leader because you're not enough of an arsehole.
Huh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That feels very backwards.
Yeah. And that kind of, so my team were very effective. They were well motivated. They were very effective. They were delivering really well. But I still had this sort of, people were a bit suspicious of me. Like I had some voodoo, like what's this weird lady voodoo stuff that she's rolling about? And so yeah, it was great for me to explore how actually kindness is an extremely effective leadership approach. And there's more and more and more evidence now showing how that's how you actually foster all of these things that we know propel engagement and performance, like psychological safety. And kindness is interesting because it's not nice. If you look at the psychology of it, one of the reasons it gets a bad press is people confuse it with nice. They think that it's about being polite or not being direct or smoothing over situations that need to be dealt with. Whereas actually real kindness is hard. It often means sacrificing something. And me back in those days, fighting for what I thought was right, standing up to the narcissist, protecting my team. Like that was kind. Nobody else was doing it.
No.
And so it was brilliant to explore all that. And also it made me want to get a special T-shirt made with "I told you so."
Yeah, I was going to just say, that is exactly what I was just going to say. Like, there must have been something hugely validating for you in digging into the sort of science behind everything you'd already done.
Yeah, exactly. It really made me feel like doing that and parading around. I told you so. I told you so. But it was, fascinating.
Yeah. So if we were to get started with being kinder to one another, being kinder to our teams, where's a good starting place for that? Where could people look? What could they do?
Question. So for me, I think the most important thing is taking time to understand each other and to listen, and to assume good intentions, because we're all wired differently. We all have different experiences. Most of us, apart from orange Americans, have good intent. Right? Most of us have good intentions.
Yeah.
I believe that. And so if you approach each other with curiosity and compassion and put down the need to speak and listen, I think that's a good start. Yeah. I do a lot of work with teams around strengths. And this is something, I've been doing that for years, but it's another thing that was underscored with the postgrad, is that one of the biggest uptick things you can do in terms of evidence-based stuff is help people understand their strengths, help them understand what they're good at, and help them understand what their team are good at, what comes naturally to them. And that starts to put you in that mindset where, all that stuff that comes naturally to you because you're good at it, you're naturally good at it, it's one of your strengths, one of your core qualities. You can't imagine someone else not having it.
Yes.
No.
And so that forms your expectations of other people.
Sure.
And once you realize that other people have different strengths and they don't naturally have that stuff that you do, and when their wonderful strengths get dialed up a bit too high, you might struggle with them because they're not the same as you.
Sure.
Then it opens up all of this compassionate conversation that you can have, which, along with other interventions, leads to a more authentic, kinder workplace.
Have you, like, because obviously you'll have delivered sort of multiple workshops with this kind of, focus. What's been the big sort of light bulb moments for people? Like, because you must go along that kind of journey with them as you're exploring these kind of ideas. Like, what's their big kind of takeaway from it?
So I think there's a few things that that happen. Firstly, most people don't know what their strengths are.
Right.
So people are acutely aware of their weaknesses, but not aware of their strengths. And all of the positive psychology shows that we are much more likely to succeed in the direction of what we're already good at. So it's a much better use of our time to get even better at things that come naturally to us and that motivate us and make us feel like in that flow state.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Much better use of our time. And the things that I'm pointing behind myself, because our weaknesses are normally either our overplayed strength or a strength which is opposing to something you're naturally good at. So if I'm a big picture person, my pitfall might be about detail.
Okay.
Yeah? So that's my strength of big picture is a good way to look at that. And I might want to manage that and know about it and manage it. But I'm not going to become a detailed person. I'm not going to start reviewing contracts.
No.
I'm not going to be good at that. So I'm going to find somebody else who's good at that.
Yes.
And focus on the stuff I'm good at. So yeah, I've got so much to talk about there. Office rating systems and reviews are completely flawed in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're looking for people to be well-rounded, and we're not. We need well-rounded teams, not well-rounded humans.
Yeah.
That's a great message, actually, isn't it?
And so that's one of the things is about people recognizing that it's okay to be configured however they are. We're all configured perfectly, just as we are.
Yeah.
And we need to just find the environment that helps us thrive. And it's the collective team and all those beautiful variations of human brains and the diversity of all that, which leads to awesome outcomes. So, yeah, I think that's one of the things. The other big thing is there's a psychologist called Daniel Hoffman, who's from the Netherlands, I think. And he talks about opposing strengths. And he says, we're naturally drawn to people who have our opposing strength, right? So giving you an example, if I'm a harmonizing, empathetic person, I'm naturally drawn to somebody who might be very direct, very kind of challenging. I might be naturally drawn to that person because when we're both in a good place, that's really helpful. This skill over here, this strength can help me not be too over accommodating. And my strength can help that person be gentler and more empathetic, right? So we're drawn to those people. We end up building lives with them.
Yeah, thumbs up. I'm thinking about myself just now and I'm like, oh yeah.
The thing is, right, when those things are overplayed, so when I'm stressed and I'm having a bad day and I'm being over accommodating and I'm smoothing things over and I'm people pleasing. And when this other people is being blunt and thoughtless and pushy, that's a huge clash.
Absolutely.
And he says, Daniel Hoffman says, if only we could realize that those things in people that drive us mad are an aspect of their beautiful gift for the universe and spend time figuring out what that gift is, then we could all be happier people on the planet. And so those two things, I think, when you're in that strengths place.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think you've maybe just described my marriage breakup in one sentence there. Which, that's fascinating. But I like the idea that we're able to sort of see the strengths in each other rather than just the conflict.
Absolutely.
Have you noticed a difference in terms of like business attitude. So, you know, like I've always been one for the kind of collaborative, you know, team-based approach. But in general, the world has rewarded the hierarchical system and you know, the boss role and all that kind of stuff. Like, is a shift happening? I mean, you know, are people sort of more open to new ways of approach?
I think so. I mean, it does depend on the organizational culture, right? So you still have the market cultures, the banking, the corporate world, where that is still quite prevalent, that sort of hierarchical, blamey type, toxic-y culture.
Education as well. Niall and I are both from an education background, and hierarchies in education are a problem.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's still a lot of evidence to show that workplaces hire psychopaths. There's the figure that shows something like, this was part of my studies. They were looking at doing a comparison of psychopathy in senior leadership positions compared to the general public.
Interesting.
In the general public, it's about 2 or 3%. And in really senior leadership roles, it's as high as 21%.
So like 10 times more likely.
Yeah, 21% of psychopaths at that level of organisations.
Yeah.
And that's higher than the prison population.
Sure.
Which is about 18. Yeah. So you still get pockets of it. I don't think the last few years have helped in terms of diversity funding being cut. Those things. That's some of those situations are really bad.
Yeah.
However, saying that, I still think it's better than it was. Right. It's still better than it was if you look back 25 years. I think young people don't tolerate any shit.
No.
Do you know what I mean? They just they're not having it.
Yeah.
Which I love.
I love that too.
But then I think when I work with most of the organisations I work with, sort of more nimble tech companies or scale-ups or startups, and most of those organisations have spend a lot of time thinking about this kind of culture, or certainly aspiring to it, and they know that leads to better performance.
So Jenny, can we talk, because our audience is predominantly, and we're moving into more and more kind of business-focused guests, but a lot of our guests are a lot of our listeners are educators, and actually, Niall and I are familiar with Agile project management and Agile approaches, but our audience might not be. So, could you maybe just explain, because like software development's been using these approaches for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that there are a lot of lessons in that user-focused approach that could apply to any industry. So could you maybe just talk us through that?
In the olden days, I lived through this. So Agile became a thing in about 2000. And before that, software teams used to work in a more traditional way things were handed between different departments. People worked in silos. So you'd do all of the thinking and all of the analysis and all the design, and then you'd hand it to a team of engineers and they'd do all the development, and then you'd hand it to a team of testers and they'd do all the testing. It was very disciplined. Projects used to take ages, 2 years, lots and lots of documentation, very, very heavy processes. And people got fed up of working like that because it wasn't very flexible. The world was changing in terms of expectations around getting new changes into the world quicker. So figure out a different way of working. And what they did, the values that movement was shaped around was things like communicate better, collaborate more closely together, work in smaller teams around a shared purpose. So rather than having this flow of work go from one team to another, break groups down into smaller teams and have them focus on the same valuable outcome and kind of collaborate more and share skills and, make what they're working on really visible. So if something gets blocked, someone could say, oh, I can help with that. And sort of, make things flow better and have a better rhythm and sustainability. And so part of that kind of movement was about valuing individuals, valuing conversations, valuing collaboration, valuing small and valuable and agile, as the name goes. So that's where most of that, I mean, I could talk for days on end about that, but that's where most of it comes from. And where kind of that movement has flowed into all sorts of other disciplines is because this concept of having this highly effective small team delivering value, there's things in there around autonomy, around giving them permission to solve their own problems, around removing hierarchy, making everybody's skills equally valuable, adapting and being flexible to step into different roles. And so because of that, a lot of the things around, we hear this term psychological safety and high-performing teams kind of come from that place. So Google did a big study in like 2011 called Project Aristotle, where they looked at teams across the whole of Google looking for the different attributes that led to really high performance. So they looked at skills, they looked at communication, they looked at leadership, they looked at all tooling, they looked at all sorts of things. And the fundamental thing that became apparent was this thing, psychological safety, common to those teams where it's safe to experiment, safe to fail, everyone can challenge each other, you can bring your whole self in, inclusive, all of those things that underpin that. So that's why these things overlap so
adopted.
much.
Like the ideal classroom lesson then, I guess, if you're safe to, from the teacher point of view, if your students feel safe to collaborate, if they feel safe to be themselves, to give their opinions, and if it fails, that's okay. To me, that's a classroom that's working and that's allowing our students to blossom and to grow with their education. I mean, if our businesses are like that as well, then surely that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And other things like learn by doing, learn by doing and making mistakes. And we know that when we do that, we learn really rapidly. Have you heard of the Marshmallow challenge?
The one where the kids put ice in front of the kids? Is it that one, or is it a different one? Well,
it's really well known across the Agile community.
Okay.
And what it is it's like a workshopping technique. Okay. And it's really standardized. You have 18 minutes. You have 18 minutes in small groups of 3 and 4. Each team gets 20 sticks of spaghetti.
Okay.
A meter of masking tape, a meter of string, and 1 marshmallow. And you can get halal marshmallows, right? Because they contain pork gelatin. So that's just an important thing. So in terms of inclusivity. So, so every team has the same thing, and they have to see, can they build the tallest tower that supports the marshmallow with these ingredients, right? And they get 18 minutes to do it. And it's popular in the Agile community because it's a team building thing. It's something that people enjoy. It's really simple to set up. It's quick to run.
Yeah.
But the learnings from it, if you go onto YouTube or whatever, you can find out loads of, all across the world, their experience of running this challenge and what they learned from it and which demographics are good at it and which demographics are not so good at it. Like how do management consultants do versus engineers? How do marketing people do versus architects? And the learning that we take from it as a coach when we're in a learning environment about Agile is the group that perform best over and over and over again are children.
Really?
And the reason they perform the best is because they just have a go.
Yeah.
And so
they're not afraid to fail.
Yeah, they play, right? So instead of, you can imagine all the management consultants going, I think we should be building and someone says, no, I think we need triangles, and like them planning. And of course they get to the last minute and they realize the marshmallow is much heavier than they thought and the whole thing comes tumbling down. Whereas the children will experiment and they'll stick a piece of marshmallow on a piece of spaghetti and it falls over and they go, okay,
that didn't work.
Yeah.
And so they're learning, they iterate it much more rapidly, which is a core value of Agile development, is that iteration and that learning.
And is there, I'm just asking, just out of nosiness, is there a best way to do this, to build the towers, or is that something that it depends in the moment, depends on the scenario where we're doing it?
What, in terms of facilitating it?
In terms of like physically how to get the tallest tower. Have you seen somebody?
She's not going to tell you that now.
So that's going to be my Friday night, is it? I'm going to have to go and get the spaghetti and the marshmallows, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you should try that, Niall, as a classroom activity.
I might have to.
And a staff activity too.
Yeah, and see
just
who performs.
The different approaches. Yeah.
Why is it 18 minutes as well? That's a very specific number.
I think it's just, through all the people that have done it, that's what worked.
Sure.
And since it's been documented and it's used by so many people, and because it was used comparatively by different demographics, they've just standardized it.
Sure.
And that just makes a good time.
Sorry, somebody's at my doorbell there. 2 seconds.
I was like, whose door's that? I couldn't work out whose doorbell it was. Maybe he very quickly ordered some marshmallows and masking tape while we were away. That's it getting delivered.
Sorry, he rang the doorbell about 3 times, and I was like, right, this is clearly something very important. It was not. It was. I thought it was like neighbour or something, like something's kicking off or whatever. But no, that's fine. Right, sorry about that, Jenny.
That's okay. So Jenny, one of the things I noticed on your website, the collaborationcoach.net, is that correct, URL, is that you do a lot of work with Lego, and we call it Lego Serious Play, which I think is fascinating. So we definitely want to hear more about that. But I also noticed on your website that you describe yourself as, probably because of the Lego, I'm thinking, Jenny with the blocks. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited were you when you came up with Jenny with the blocks?
10. And it wasn't me. It was somebody. I was running a workshop, and somebody said, "You're still Jenny with the blocks."
Love it.
That's brilliant.
So I've actually got a little video that I did, which is it's not a video. It's like an animation, which is got the words coming up to the beat of the song.
Brilliant.
Something, all the bricks that I've got. I'm still Jenny with the blocks.
Love it.
A little now. I've got a lot.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, I'm going to bring some.
Brilliant. Jenny, tell us about
Fantastic.
this Lego Serious Play then.
Yeah.
What's serious about it? How does it work? How does it help?
Yeah.
How does it help with the workshop facilitation?
Yeah, it's awesome. So it's a proper thing. It's been around for over 10 years now, I think maybe even about 15. Started off in Lego itself, in the research and education department.
Cool.
And spun off to be its own thing. Mm-hmm. And then it's gone open source in the last few years. I'm not sure how many few years, but it's a kind of rigorous facilitation method.
Right.
And I did my training in, I think, 2017, which was an immersive 3 days of training surrounded by Lego. You can do other training now that's a bit shorter. That's a 2 days, I think, or 1 day.
Sure.
And it is amazing. It's based on a number of different researched, evidenced things. One of them is called constructivism. Yeah. So it's based on this constructivism theory, which because your fingertips are connected to 80% of your working memory, the act of just physically using the bricks helps unlock more of your working memory, as well as like the act of sort of building blocks helps you form concepts, sort of synthesize information. So that's one aspect of it. The thing that I love about it is how inclusive it is. And everybody participates the same. So in most workshop scenarios, or certainly environments, I'm sure it's the same in classrooms, 20% contribute 80% of the space.
Yes.
And Lego Serious Play is really, really leveling. So everybody is utterly equal in the way that they participate.
Brilliant.
And because the build, when you build the Lego and you answer questions with Lego, which I'll tell you about in a bit more detail, it's in silence. So it's really immersive and it gives you time to think. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, I'm sure it's the same in classrooms, the same in workshops, we're expected to be verbalizing our answers quite quickly.
Yeah.
However, like 80% of folks in there are more deliberative and rather have time to think. Mm-hmm. And often you get the best answers there, right? Because rather than blurting out the first things that comes into your head, they're more considered, more backed up by, experience and those sorts of things. And so it's just wonderful. What happens when you use this technique is I get shivers down my back. You get that somebody will be sharing a model that they built. And I get the feeling, goodness, this is the first time you've ever been heard on this team.
Sure.
Wow.
Like, it's the first ever time. And your model is always right. Your concept is always right. Can't be taken away from you.
Sure.
And it also, when you build a model, you're answering the question, but your answer is in the model, and the bricks can mean whatever you want them to mean. So there's no ego or politics that comes into it, and nobody can challenge it. And so if you don't say, remember that time a few weeks ago, it has to be in the model. So you're saying this is me, and these are the tools that I'm using, and I'm elevated. I'm being supported by this bridge here, which represents my team.
Sure.
And they're all facing, this is my team. They're not real people, but they're facing inwards. And I've got a flower on my head because I'm flourishing. And it's just the most incredible things surface from it. Wow. And so the method, there's different applications. You can apply it at the individual level. You can apply it at the team level. You can apply it at the organizational level. It always starts with an individual build, with somebody building an answer to the question, which is sufficiently vague for the answer to come out in Lego. And then if you've got time, you extend it towards shared models, which is really powerful. So, for example, I ran a session a couple of weeks ago. Everybody built an individual model. What does psychological safety look like to you? How does it feel? And that's the question. How does it feel? And then 8 minutes to construct this model. Everybody's got the same bricks, so there's no competition about who's the coolest Lego.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's my 8 minutes. Here's my model that represents psychological safety. Then everybody shares the model, and everybody deeply listens and doesn't think about their model and think about the person. And then they combine them into a group answer.
Sure.
And the method says that everybody's language and concept, even if every single brick isn't part of the new model, their concept is wholly incorporated in it. And so somebody will then tell the story of the shared model.
Yeah.
And they're only allowed to finish practicing when everybody's comfortable with how their concept has been framed. Okay. So somebody might say, if I was describing somebody else's model and I said, here Jitesh encapsulates psychological safety represented by these bricks, which mean diversity, and here everybody's reaching their potential. He might say, no, don't use potential, use the word flourish. I'll say, okay, I'll practice again. Were you happy with that? They say yes. And then you share with the group. It's amazing, and there's so many applications, things to explore.
Yeah.
But it's transformative, it really is, and you hear from everybody, and you don't forget. So later on, and I guess this would happen in a classroom as well, right? Later on, the next day, when you're extending the conversation about that thing, someone will say, "Well, remember the flourishing circle, or remember the orb of knowledge, or remember the pit of alligators."
Yeah.
And it's like a metaphor. It's like a leap into that space for that shared learning. Yeah.
And much more memorable and impactful than a PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's astonishing. It really is. And used a lot with children as well in various sectors. I'm looking at books on my shelf, but there's applications that extend into therapy, that extend into working with children, that extend into...
Yeah, I'm thinking of young boys with their emotions. Like, I know that the stereotypical, you give young boys things to play with their hands so that then their hands are occupied and then they can start to consider their emotions and their thoughts, feelings, recollecting. That was my first thought when you were chatting about that.
I've had a bunch of executives, like CTOs, who've never met each other, answering questions in Lego and breaking down and being nourished by the group, saying things they've never said before.
Powerful. Yeah, powerful.
Do you have I take it you have a lot of Lego?
That was going to be my question.
I have a storage unit with masses of Lego, because when you're running it for big teams, you need to make packs that where all the bricks are the same.
Yeah.
You get addicted to bricks. It's like, oh, that one, I found this one on the Lego marketplace. That looks really interesting. I need 100 of those.
You'll be hitting that brick link.
It's crazy. But also the Lego sorting. I did a what's it called when you stop the camera every minute? Time lapse.
Stop. Yeah, time lapse.
I did a time lapse video of me the whole weekend sorting out like half a ton of Lego, and it's like my whole family and friends are moving around and drinking wine and unloading the dishes.
That's brilliant. I'd love to see that. Actually, did you share that publicly?
It's on YouTube. Yeah, I'll send you the links.
Yeah.
I've also got on my YouTube channel. I've also got a 1 hour explainer of the whole of the Lego Serious Play method.
Ah, cool.
So if you're interested in doing that, and it tells you where to get the kit, the different applications, gives lots of examples, shows lots of photos.
If people in our kind of education schools audience want, because there's lots of ways that your workshops would, be brilliant for staff teams in education, and presumably there's lots of ways they can reach out to you via your website, the collaborationcoach.net.
Yes, yeah. I run lots of tailored Lego Serious Play workshops, anything from like a couple of hours to a couple of days.
We spoke with Ben Rouse nearly a year ago now, actually, a number of months ago. Yeah, I know, it was a while, and he had introduced us to your work, and he shared a couple of ideas that he'd borrowed.
I've now said that out loud, so thank you, Jenny. I'll be borrowing that, if that's okay.
You posted up the other day that you've got, a couple of weeks ago now, your toolkit that you take out to your different sessions, and in it includes post-it notes, which is one of Ben Rouse's famous things that he has. Talk about the toolkit. What do you take with you to the sessions? How do you use, I know you mentioned the Lego, but how do you use the post-its? Is that for like the collaboration writing down, like the ideas and they get stuck up on the boards? How do you use the different tools that you take with you? Are you more digital, physical?
So I guess I use a whole number of things. Post-it notes are really, really useful for a bit similar to the Lego Serious Play, giving people to think individually first. So spend a couple of minutes capturing your own thoughts, and then work with somebody else and discuss your thoughts with them, which is a low barrier for collaboration because most people are happy talking to one other person, and then surface those things together in a group. So it's a really good way to explore things and to kind of do that double diamond, that diamond design thinking where you brainstorm and then you kind of narrow down, which is really good kind of practices for exploring any kind of situation. So always post-it notes. I tend to prepare digital materials as well, but also be ready to draw and ready to capture things on a whiteboard because people have different learning. Oh, you know this, right? People have different learning styles. Some people, what I tend to do is cover content together without slides and then recap with slides. And give them away. So there's like both for folks to use. I tend to use my time timer. So Ben probably has one of those as well, which is a big clock which is just got 60 minutes, and you can see the 60 minutes run down. So that gets people used to, right, okay, we've got 20 minutes, we've got 15 minutes on exercise. So always have that. I have love heart-shaped Post-it notes, which I do this activity where it's quite a nice thing to finish with, particularly if you're talking about strengths and things like that. You write down on a love heart Post-it note a strength or a quality you see in somebody else, and everybody writes them down on a page on a bit of card, and then they run round and put them on each other's backs.
Oh, I love that. I've seen
Nice.
that done. Yeah, that's cool.
And then you kind of collect them at the end, which is really nice. Oh God, so many tools. Candy kittens always go down well to keep people,
The sweeties.
people with sugar, some sweeties, candy kittens.
Yeah.
Loads of different printed materials and game things like balls to throw around.
Yep.
Always Lego. Lego's really useful as part of training, just for even a bit of reflection. So
Mm-hmm.
a bit of immersive learning for a bit and some exploring concepts, and then 10 minutes, build your key takeaway. Build a model that represents your key thing that you've taken away. It makes people actually think about it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Name cards. So I like to, there's a thing in facilitation called an unofficial start. So when people come in, they often feel quite awkward
Mm-hmm.
in that
Yes.
first few minutes. And so I have these, the multicolour scratch design things that you have.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Where
we've
you
got
scratch off the
rainbow
black and
back
it, rainbow. Yeah.
So I've got these things which are like bookmarks, but I get people to make their names with them
Oh, cool.
and put them in front of them. Anything playful and
Yeah.
engaging. So it depends what I'm training. I also run public speaking training. So for that, I've got loads of props and loads of improv stuff. For my product Agile stuff, I've obviously got lots of Agile workshop kit. So it varies. But when I've got the massive orange suitcase, which is bigger than me, it's normally Lego. It's normally loads of Lego.
I actually think your work sounds super fun.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that the feedback from your workshops kind of is probably, speaks about the fun aspect of it. Because so many training events we go to, and, professional development things are that kind of sit and listen to a PowerPoint again, most of which are incredibly badly designed, inaccessible, and lots of text heavy. So it must be refreshing for people to go into one of your workshops and be doing things.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. I mean, that's the thing that motivates me, is people having a learning experience where they're actually engaged and having fun and learning.
Yep.
Yes.
There was a book I read. I'm not sure if this moves into the kind of education community, but in my community, it's very well known. It's a book called Training from the Back of the Room.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
No.
I'm sure it's very valid in teaching situations as well. And it talks about being, rather than at the front of the room, presenting, being at the back of the room and taking more of a back seat, handing over the pen, having 80% of the content be participatory and 20% of it be like from the front. And so, and there's also a structure. This Sharon Bowman wrote this book. It's been around for about 15 years, and it's still seen as a real kind of go-to book in my circles. And so there's also this 4 C's framework, which is start with connections. What do people already know, think and feel about the subject? Move into core concepts. So that might be where there's some teaching.
Yeah.
And then core practice. So have a go, discover yourself, and then conclusion. And so I try and design something that follows those patterns for each chunk of content, and use different tools for that. So there's also in facilitation, there's a thing called liberating structures, which is about group discussion and exploration, which helps everybody participate.
I think these things are will be very fascinating to our educator audience, because at the end of the day, we're talking about engaging human beings, and young people, children and young people are just mini versions. And we see all the same behaviours from the adults in our training as we see from young people when we work with them. So I think that the education establishments could benefit hugely from this kind of staff development session. So
there's one thing from the book that I use every time, which I've been using for 10 or so years, and it just always works, and it's this little activity called research and present.
Right.
Okay.
And so if I'm covering something as part of my training which is in the public domain, which I didn't invent, and I don't think the audience will get masses of benefit from me delivering it in a particular way, it's just out there already. So training I ran quite recently covered different ways of giving and receiving feedback. Okay. So break the group into 4 different teams of 3 or 4, give them a slightly different question. So you're going to look at the top tips for effective feedback. You're going to look at growth mindset. What does that mean? You're going to look at how do I receive feedback well? You're going to look at what's the structure of common feedback models? And you just give them 15 or 20 minutes. That's all they need. And say, here's a A3 piece of paper. Here's some pens. Here's some stickers. Use your phone. Use ChatGPT if you want. Use Google. Do whatever you want. But you're going to then bring that information back to the group and present it in 3 minutes, and then answer some questions. And what that does then is everybody learns so much from that, so much more from that than if I'd presented it. And then I've got some slides, and we spend 10 minutes going through my slides and going, oh, look, you covered all of this. Well done. You already answered all of this stuff, and here's it to take away if you want to.
That would be brilliant for a teacher, wouldn't it? In terms of any concept in the classroom, that would be
it just works
powerful.
Every time.
Amazing. Jenny, listen, this has been absolutely brilliant. I see we've got Darren, our next guest, is already kind of lining up in the studio, but thank you so much. That was fascinating, really was. And we'll make sure that we put the links to your website and stuff in our show notes, just so that people have got the links there. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing what you do. It's been fascinating. And I hope you have got an exciting weekend ahead of you, or a quiet weekend if that's what you need. I hope you've got the weekend that you need ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm going to do some gardening. Last weekend I was at a conference all about play. So this week we're going to do some gardening and not very much else.
Thanks very much for staying to the end of another Digitize Fully Charged podcast episode. Thanks to Jenny for joining us today. We really enjoyed that conversation. Remember, it means a massive amount to us if you can share the podcast with people that you think might find it interesting. We do this for fun, so it really means a lot to us if you subscribe or share it with other people. We're at Digitize Crew on all the social channels. So if you could give us a share, we'd really appreciate it. We'll catch you again next time.